I had been trained to trust the silence of the deep ocean, to read the faintest echo on the sonar screen like sheet music. To me, beneath the thick ice, sound was law, until it broke. At 0300 hours on a frigid polar night, Polaris's sonar room exploded with alarm beeps. 3 rapid pings cut through the quiet, each identical and perfectly spaced. I whipped my head around, heart thudding. This wasn't a routine echo or chatter from Arctic sea life. I froze, fingers hovering over the console. Outside the observation port, water stretched black and empty under the ice. There should have been nothing there at all. When the sonar returned from that ping, I saw it, a dim dot drifting far below, far away, at a strange bearing we hadn't charted. My brain raced. Was this a glitch, a new sonar buoy, or something more? "Contact bearing 045, I whispered over the intercom. My voice sounded hollow in the hush Polaris. The sonar tech beside me, Petty Officer Matthias, looked up sharply. We knew the rules. Any unknown echo under the ice was classified and dangerous. Something out there had responded to our sonar. We were listening, and it seemed to be listening back. I'm Petty Officer First Class Eric Sutton, sonar technician aboard the USS Narwhal, a Seawolf-class nuclear attack submarine. It was late winter 2032, and my home for the last 3 months was this long, narrow steel tube, slipping through frigid Arctic waters. Our mission was cloaked in secrecy. Publicly, we were charting under-ice topography for climate research, but the truth was, we were hunters, patrolling the polar waters in silence. There had been rumors of unknown activity beneath the ice, military tests, weird seismic readings, and Narwhal's captain had orders to get to the bottom of it. Life aboard Narwhal was a rhythm of watches and drills. We moved in shifts, 6 hours on, 12 off, the whole time under the ice cap of the Arctic Ocean. In the sonar room, emerald green screens and glass display panels glowed in the dim emergency lighting. On the scopes, I could almost trace the jagged contours of the ice above us, lit by our low-power sonar pulses. Overhead, the steel pressure hull sometimes groaned as the ship drifted under shifting ice flows. Outside, the darkness was absolute. Our watch was supposed to be routine mapping of the ice underside, pinging fan beams and taking notes, logging data for the boss back in Pearl Harbor. Captain Reyes, a square-jawed old submariner, would check in once a day with tidbits of information. But every time a sensor routine ran, there was a hint of something off. Our seismic sensors picked up faint groans. A few of the old salts whispered about ice quakes and then shushed themselves. Everyone knew we had special orders. We were under strict MCON. No radio transmissions except daily check-ins, and we were not to ping outside our immediate survey area unless we were directed to.
In the first week, strange things started piling up. One morning in briefing, the executive officer barked, "Under no circumstances are we to use the long-range sonar in Sector 5. Don't ask why, just obey." All I thought was odd, since Sector 5 was a large open basin on our chart, usually harmless. Another day, Chief of the Watch Lieutenant Carver noticed missing files on the sonar computer. Some scan logs were mysteriously overwritten. "This mission is off the books," he muttered under his breath. The old sonar chief, Petty Officer Hale, warned me quietly, "Son, just keep your head down and do your job." Even the protocol drills were bizarre. One night, we were hit with an emergency under-ice distress code drill, meaning everyone should simulate a catastrophic hull breach under the ice. The air alarm screamed, and crew dashed for stations, but the captain never acknowledged a problem. Afterward, he just said, "Hypotheticals are practice." Still, I felt a chill. Why practice an event that might already be happening out there? Murmurs passed in the mess hall about Project Ice Pick and that blackout on Subnet 5. A junior enlisted sailor joked about ghosts in the ice picking up our signals. We laughed, but only half. Everyone was tense. The Arctic crept into our bones, and something else crept into our psyches. By the end of that first week, even I had started questioning if what I'd seen was a mistake. Everything changed on Patrol Day 20. I was on midwatch in the sonar pit when it happened again, except this time there were no other pings, just one. With a thrill, I recalled the anomalous blip from days before, but this was unmistakable. A lone, rhythmic pulse arrived on the hydrophones, repeating 3 times before cutting out. It wasn't a sonar ping. It felt like a message. My skin crawled as I said into the microphone, "Sir, passive sonar picking up a repeating signal, quiet, almost melodic." The control room went dead silent for a long moment. Lieutenant Carver frowned at his screen. "Passive only? Show me." I flipped screens. On the hydrophone array plot, at bearing 170 and range 3.5 kilometers, the signal amplitude spiked, then faded 3 times, like a coded tap. No machinery hum, no biological call, just signal. The captain appeared behind Carver at the scopes. "Is it one of ours?" he asked. Carver shook his head. "No active ping, sir. Looks unknown." I watched the signal imprint again, my stomach doing flip-flops. This time, I made sure the recorder captured it. Over the next 15 minutes, the same triple pulse repeated at random intervals. From now on, it would come again exactly every 13 minutes. "What the hell is it saying?" Carver muttered. No one had an answer. Colonel Reyes ordered the log updated. "Unidentified passive signal detected under pack ice. Origin unknown. Continue patrol." Back in the sonar room, Matthias whispered, "You heard that, right? That was deliberate." I nodded, trying not to tremble. I turned off our routine pinging. All we could do was listen.
We started tracking it. The pulses might not be active sonar, but our earlier contacts were responsive to active pings. Now we plotted the latest signal on our chart. It seemed to come from the southeast, shifting slowly. Following the captain's orders, we moved quietly in that direction, slower than ever, so as not to scare it away. An hour passed in tense silence before I saw them again on sonar. Small, pale echoes drifting 200 meters under the ice. 2 shapes, about 30 meters long each, lying roughly parallel. No registration on any IFF system. They were deep and too quiet. When our active sonar pulsed the ice floor, the echoes from those shapes jumped. Each time I pinged, the outlines on the screen squirmed, then settled in a new position. It was as if whoever or whatever was down there knew we were pinging. "Lieutenant, should we try a response?" I asked, heart hammering. If this was intelligent, maybe we could communicate. Carver considered. "Passive only. We'll log and watch." His voice was steady, but his fists were clenched. I watched the blips carefully. For a full 10 minutes, the shapes simply drifted along, never accelerating above 2 knots. Then, without warning, one of them dipped deeper under the ice and surged forward. The display line for that contact shot up toward the surface. Within seconds, both contacts shot ahead at more than 12 knots, far too fast for any known marine creature. They streaked north, racing away from the ship as though startled. My stomach flipped. I shouted, "They're moving fast! Look at that speed!" The room turned frantic. Captain Reyes barked, "Do we follow?" Carver hit silent running, eyes wide. "We'll lose them under the ice if we chase." We stared at the flickering scopes. In moments, the contacts vanished into the dark rows of ice ridges. Silence returned, except for our heavy breathing. Commander Reyes ran a hand through his hair. "Log it," he said flatly. "Engineers, take the sub to deep mode. Keep her at 5 knots. We don't need any accidents." He glanced around at the shaken faces. "Let's resume normal ops. We don't know what that was, but we're not engaging it right now. Understood?" No one answered. The captain gave no more orders about it, as if saying nothing could erase what we saw. I went back to the sonar console and tore the tape from that last minute of recording. Even if no one else would admit it,
Something had just passed us by like we were standing still. After that day, none of us slept easy. The crew had seen the logs by now. Rumors spread faster than an Arctic blizzard. Some chalked it up to a sensor glitch or clandestine project. Others whispered about a living horror under the ice. I stopped sleeping in my rack, instead dozing in the sonar chair as data rolled by. Every deep rumble or distant tap on the hull had me spinning around, convinced the creature had come back. One by one, people began to unravel. Petty Officer Hale, my taciturn mentor, started stammering about that thing when he thought nobody heard. In the mess hall, the usual jokes died. Even the cook's smile didn't reach his eyes. Mid-watch, I caught Chief Mate Ramirez muttering old sailor prayers in Spanish under his breath. The ice canopy above felt heavier every day, an oppressive ceiling pressing down on our nerves. An incident happened on patrol day 24. We decided to surface in an open lead of water to exchange mail with the crew of an icebreaker above us, a routine transfer. Narwhal broke through with a rumble, the sun piercing our dark world for the first time in weeks. Fresh air, snow glistening. For a moment we almost forgot. But as soon as we settled, the sonar team on deck started calling out faint blips around the hull. Shapes. Scores of them, hidden in the twilight water. Silhouettes flickering at the edge of sonar range, 3 times the length of our sub's hull. They moved in silent tandem beneath us. Panic swept the deck. Helm screamed, "Dive, dive!" The captain's voice boomed in speakers. "Emergency, submerged immediately." We flooded tanks and shot down. Narwhal jolted as if caught. The sonar locker metal groaned, pressure alarms ringing. In the final moments before the hatch closed, I saw one enormous dark shape flash past an observation dome. It was longer than Narwhal herself, and fat, and it had pale, round eyes that seemed to glow in the fading light. Then we went deep, racing back under the ice just to escape. Nobody spoke for a while. The lower deck lights were dim, a battle lantern glow. The sub shuddered occasionally as the engineers stabilized us. I could barely breathe, adrenaline still spiking. Lieutenant Carver put his hand on my shoulder in the control room. "You all right, son?" I nodded numbly. We all were. Narwhal had inadvertently become the prey, and we lived. But the taste of that encounter was bitter. We were not alone under the ice. Something had followed us out.
Captain Reyes called an emergency meeting. "We've seen it," he said quietly, face grave. "A creature or creatures under the ice. We can assume it's not dangerous unless provoked. But frankly, that event just now was provocation enough." He laid out a desperate plan. Avoid unnecessary noise, do not surface again, track silently home. Some men argued for alerting headquarters, but we had no real communications. Arctic silence was law. It was up to us to survive and report once in range. In the coming hours, paranoia became our bunker. We walked on eggshells. Every ping and chirp I made was followed by heart-pounding silence. Fear clawed at me when the array picked up distant whale song or far-off ice cracking. I jumped every time the hull creaked. One night, I woke to my name in a whisper. A shadow flitted outside the periscope eye, or maybe it was just frost on the glass. My hands shook so badly that coffee missed my cup. On deck, some sailors took to sleeping in the torpedo racks, wanting steel behind them. Then came the direct attack. On patrol day 28, exactly at midnight, we were cruising under steady ice when Narwhal lurched. The temperature gauges spun up and an emergency klaxon blared. The hull plates near the bow had buckled inward, metal fouled with deep gouges. It felt like a giant hand had swatted us. A fire alarm chimed in the reactor room, then cut off as the reactor safeties kicked in. Power went out briefly before the emergency batteries blinked on with red lights. I felt the sub shivering all around me, like her spine was broken. "What the hell was that?" shouted Ensign Morris from sonar. We all stared at the screens. There was nothing visible now, No contacts. Damage above us must be ice, Carver said, voice tight. But we knew better. We took a hit from something big, Reyes said after a moment, anger and fear mixing. Report casualties. Check flooding. Orders barked through the corridors as men scurried. In the sonar lab, I sat frozen, wondering what had just grazed the ship. Later, in the dim aft berthing, 2 of our crew were missing. The hatch to the forward torpedo room had been jammed, and the 2 sailors assigned there didn't return. We guessed the creature had ripped them out in the confusion. No body, only the empty rack where they'd slept. The captain closed the file under accidental missing personnel, but we all knew the truth. Officially, it was unexplained equipment failure. To us, it was murder under the ice. By the time we finally broke out of the ice pack days later, the crew was a hushed, haunted bunch. We limped into open water and set a silent course for home. In the control room, only the hum of normal alarms was left. The creature never followed. The Arctic stretched behind us, empty and indifferent. It felt like waking from a nightmare. I still keep a private log of everything we saw, but I doubt anyone will ever read it. The official reports will say we lost communication and returned at once due to a reactor alert. We lost 2 good sailors, but our mission was called off with only vague mention of structural anomalies in ice. I can't bear to ask why we really were there. Now, at night, I lie awake imagining this silence under the ice. I wonder if it's still out there, listening, recording our every move. If the Navy ever scraps the official story, maybe someone will learn what Narwhal found. If you hear a strange ping on the other side of the world, take heed. We were in the middle of a frozen ocean, and something answered us, and it didn't want to talk.